Hey, Steve Riley, welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Today's guest is Susan Drumm, a Harvard-trained lawyer, CEO advisor, USA Today bestselling author, the founder of Emeritage Leadership. She hosts The Enlightening Executive, a podcast ranked in the top 1.5% worldwide, where she interviews leaders and experts on practical ways to make better decisions, build healthier teams, and perform under pressure. Her book, The Leader's Playlist, turns music and neuroscience into a simple routine for shifting your state before high-stake moments. Before launching her company, Susan consulted with BCG, Boston Consulting Group, led marketing and Six Sigma at NBC and GE, and advised executives teams. With that, Susan, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. I want to know how you went from Harvard to becoming a CEO, advisor, coach, and how in the world did music come into this?
Yes, I have quite the eclectic background, and one I'll even mention that you didn't mention, which is I have a master's in acting from the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. So it starts to give a window a little bit in how the music came in. But
Well,
um,
wait a minute. We also have a degree from Carnegie Mellon. Is that correct?
yeah, yes, that's right.
All
My
right. So what's the
undergrad
Carnegie
degree.
Mellon degree? And then we'll talk about the London Academy.
Yeah. So, because that came after law school, by the way, the acting degree, believe it or not. I went to, yes, I did. I had undergrad business major at Carnegie Mellon and then went to Harvard Law School, thought I was going to be a lawyer. Um, and I did love the study of law, but I was coming out with quite a bit of loan debt. And this is back in 1995, right? And so, uh, it felt like the only options for me were to go to work at the really large law firms and basically sign my life away. That's what it felt like. And that's what I saw when I worked during the summers. And I felt like there was such inefficiency coming from a business background, such inefficiency that I saw going on at these law firms. And it, I didn't want to be a part of it. It didn't seem like the second year associate wasn't happy. The fourth year associate wasn't happy. The partner may be happy because they now had some money, but I and that's not to say that's true for everyone, of course, but certainly for me, I didn't think that this was a good fit. But what am I going to do? I'm at Harvard Law School. I'm graduating with this massive loan debt. And at the same time, I started taking classes at the Harvard Business School and transferring them over. And so I did both of those things and discovered consulting. And that's how I got into BCG. So I did still take the bar in New York and passed. And every year I have to sign that I'm retired from the practice of law. But indeed, I have never practiced law, but I got the law degree. And here's what it gave me, though. I think law is so good in teaching you how to make finer and finer distinctions. And usually that's applied to case law, right? What I use that skill now is to apply it to how to make distinctions in mindset or how people think and really show them that they're looking at something with a certain set of beliefs and assumptions. And if they shift that, a whole new set of actions will occur to them.
That is just a fascinating journey. And so for our audience, could you tell them exactly what you do today? So we know it's leadership development, but how does that play out? How does your journey, how's this shape the book, The Leader's Playlist? How does this all play out for you?
Yes, yes. So I focus on helping leaders understand where they get stuck in patterns, how to disrupt those patterns, and how to create new ones. I believe effective leadership is generated from pattern recognition and pattern disruption. And that everything we see is a pattern. There's patterns all around us, and we don't often know what pattern we're stuck in. Sometimes we discover we're stuck in a pattern, but we just can't get ourselves out of that. And there are a couple of different modalities that I use to do that work. I would say the thought leadership is around that angle. What I'm actually doing that people would recognize is executive coaching, leadership development, designing programs for professional services firms, as well as tech, healthcare, and financial services. Those are primarily some of the places that I'll play. We'll design development programs for their leaders. We do a lot of team coaching and team development as well. So each of these areas are what we do, and people might recognize what that is. But in how we go about it is this idea of pattern recognition. So there are two modalities I'm going to talk about today that I use to help people understand pattern recognition and disruption. One is called the Enneagram, and the other one is using music. Now, the Enneagram is particularly powerful because it very much maps who is looking in that direction. And if I'm arguing, no, it's blue, it's blue, it's blue, and you're saying, no, it's yellow, it's yellow, it's yellow. With this mapping, when you do it with a team, you can understand why that happens and how actually the person that's arguing that it's yellow is your best friend in terms of growth. They have something to teach you, and you have something to teach them. And so, if you can harness this kind of initial conflict, you can actually create better team performance coming out of it in a way that you may have been resistant to initially. And so helping teams really understand their compilation, also what perspectives are missing on the team that they need to kind of retroactively fix for is one way I help the team recognize the pattern that they're in, but also particular leaders and what their pattern is and how to be open to differing perspectives. And I call it cognitive diversity at the end of the day. It's sort of like making sure that you have different types of thinkers on your team so that you create the best decisions. But you're
So
going to
what
have to be able to have skill to work through the conflict.
so talk to
Thank
me
you.
about practical resources, what you would advise people, and where people can get more information from you and your company.
Yeah, yeah. Happy to. I want to key in on something that you mentioned just about songs. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't ever feel negative emotions or depleting emotions. They're actually really important. They're important data, information that we need to pay attention to. For instance, anger. When we feel anger, it lets us know that a boundary has been crossed or a value has been dishonored. And we want to be able to feel that emotion so that the gift in anger is the ability to take action to reestablish the boundary or the value, right? And if we never allow ourselves to feel the anger, we won't take that move and then we'll have loose boundaries and that won't be good either. What I'm suggesting more is using this process when you're stuck in a pattern of anger. You ever know anybody who's gotten stuck in a pattern of anger? Yep.
I know someone intimately that
Yes.
gets stuck in a pattern of anger.
That's the piece that I'm talking about. So I really want to make that clarification. And when you talk about that beautiful story about your father, music can be there's why when we go through breakups or other grieving process, we do want to listen to sad songs because we want to process that. And music can be a powerful way that we do that. And so I think that is really beautiful. And you want to look for, am I, because really being stuck in a pattern is a loss of freedom. We're on autopilot, where the machine is taken over, right? And that's ultimately what I'm here is to help people create more freedom in their life, freedom to choose versus the 8-lane highway to hell. So the resources that I have, as you mentioned, a simple way maybe to find your superpower and some of the liabilities is to I have a free quiz. It doesn't take very long. It's at susandrumm.com. And that's my personal brand site. And there you can take the quiz. But here's what's kind of special about it. Once it'll give you what your result is, but it'll also point you to the chapter in the book that is similar to maybe what showed up as your superpower. And in the book itself, the leader's playlist, I talk about this concept and I talk about how a lot of these patterns got formed in childhood and they've stuck with us. So they're deep seated patterns. And I also talk about the neuroscience behind how music works. But then I go into 9 short stories about how different leaders have been stuck in certain patterns and how they've used music to shift. And I actually provide their actual playlist of what music they listen to. So
Awesome.
when you take the quiz, it'll say you might want to check out chapter 4 where I talk about John and his pattern. Here's the music he used, but you need to find the expression of it for you. It's not the same music. You've got to look at what is the music doing to you, and I can't really dictate that. That's for you to discover. But at least his playlist will give you some inspiration for other types of songs that could help you.